Welcome to the Look Who It Is podcast, where we sit down with artists to talk music, life, and all the stories in between. Now here's your host, Dane Engel.
So, Amanda Cook, would you consider yourself solely a bluegrass artist?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then you're also a singer, songwriter.
I do a little bit of both. Yeah.
And you play guitar also.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play any other instruments?
I do. I play upright bass and mandolin.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
You're half the band then.
No, far from it.
Can't do them all at once though, right?
No, exactly.
So, yeah, so how many you have in your band with you?
So there's 6 of us total. I have a 5-piece banjo, mandolin, guitar, and fiddle.
Yeah, are they all the same people you play? It's like your band. That's always who's with you.
Yeah. So the Fabulous Four, as I like to call us, Caroline Van Lera Boone she was the first member to join the band on banjo, and then very shortly after that, I hired in George Mason on fiddle and Josh Fall on bass, and so the 4 of us made the original charter of the band, and they've been with me now for 11 years. This October will be 11 years. That the 4 of us have been together. And then 6 years ago, we hired in our mandolin player, Troy Boone, which is Caroline's husband. So, yeah.
Nice. And then you're constantly touring and traveling. You have something pretty much always going on, or?
Yeah, like we're a full-time professional touring bluegrass band. We release albums every year to a year and a half. Usually every other year we're releasing a full studio record, and we're on full time on tour. Like that's our life.
Yeah. So do you write most of your stuff on the road then?
I don't. It's kind of one of those things where I just kind of write as it comes to me, and we have the material kind of set back. I usually have at least half or a full album already ready by the time we get into the studio the next time. But I have an incredible library of writers that I lean on, that I pull material from, and generally have those songs held well before we go in and start producing that next project.
So is it the whole song? It's like, is it just the lyrics, or do you have the whole song prepared?
Generally, we have, a pretty rough outline of what we're going to do with it. But for the most part, we do everything on the fly. Bluegrass bands are a little bit different and everything is acoustic, right? So we're doing everything live tracking. There's very little overdubbing going on. And so my band in particular, we do all of the production in the studio in a week-long session. Generally, we take a kind of a retreat style to putting our records together, and I kind of like to keep some of the songs a little bit of a mystery to the band before we go into the studio, so that their creative juices get flowing, and it's all done on the fly, and it makes for a more authentic project, I feel like. So.
I really enjoy bluegrass music, but because it's so much different than a lot of the other music that comes out,
Yeah.
So, yeah, glad to have you on. You can teach me.
Well, watching your TikToks and the videos you've posted, it was really intriguing to me. I like to hear other sides of the music industry, and like I'm not just into bluegrass as far as a listener and a fan. So it's interesting to me to hear of, the way rock bands put their stuff together and jazz band, I just enjoy hearing like all different sides of it. So.
What's something that you listen to that people wouldn't think that would be something you'd listen to?
Well, I'm really big into like Celine Dion and Adele. Like Billie Eilish right now is my latest obsession. I just ordered her latest record on vinyl, And so most people would not think that I would ever listen to Billie Eilish, but it's killer. It's just
Yeah,
music, you know what I mean? Yeah.
right. Do you think any of that overflows into your music?
I mean, I think if you're an artist, music is music, and I think that any really music that you listen to, I think it influences you, especially as a singer. Celine Dion, those are huge produced products. I mean, obviously her vocals are just pristine, but the layout of those rhythm tracks and the way that they lay all that music behind her vocal, there's a lot of production involved in that, which is so different than what we do as bluegrass musicians. But her vocals definitely influence, there's just such power and strength in what she does. Same thing with Adele, a lot bigger budgets on those records than what we're working with in bluegrass for sure.
Yeah, I know, because there's so many bluegrass bands that, I mean, I feel like a lot of them just tour all the time and do put out a lot of music.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, I mean, it is a much smaller community compared to any other genre of music. We're kind of like the redheaded stepchild of country music. And so our community is a lot smaller. And so in order for us to survive, we have to play a lot of shows and we have to put out music more often than say, a mainstream country band or a mainstream rock band. There you can't allow too much time to lapse between projects, to stay relevant and to actually be able to buy groceries. So
Is your main source of revenue through that? Is it your album sales or your tours, or like?
I think it really is a mixture of both. For us, our main income source really is Sirius XM radio, because that is the only platform that we have that really plays bluegrass 24/7. And so we have the balance of that royalty income and then the balance of streaming income, which, again, we won't go down that road, but streaming, really has put a hurt on a lot of independent artists and smaller record labels, and because album sales are down because of that. So just trying to find a balance between royalty income, streaming income, tour income, and then album sales out on the road. Yeah.
I know coming up in a few weeks, there's a bluegrass festival close to me,
hmm
and it's a free festival, and it's donation only. And it's like, is it based on merchandise? How?
I would assume that places that do, I mean, anytime we've played a free festival, they've
Hmm.
had these great amount of sponsors. That is one of the things about bluegrass that people tend to love about it as fans, is that the sense of community that we have and we share. So, we go into a bluegrass festival setting that's in a community. The local Dodge dealership will donate to pay for this band to come, or, the bakery in town will pay for this band to come and perform. And, so that's pretty common, really.
How do you find all of these? Do you have a booking manager, or are you the
Yeah.
booking manager? You?
For years I did our booking for the band. For the first five or so years of the band, I did the booking full time. But I have, thankfully, we've got management now that handles all of our tour scheduling and our booking and all of that for me. So
Do you also have a social media manager?
she is also our social media manager. So we have like an all-in-one management, which is incredible. Yeah.
A lot of the people I've spoke with do it themselves, and they absolutely despise it.
Yes. Yes. Trying to come up with content as an artist is, people would think that that would be so easy. But it's not when you're a full-time touring band. I mean, we were just in Wisconsin last weekend and, there was zero internet out there where we were. And, not that we couldn't have filmed with our phone without internet, but it was just, it was difficult. to take the time to like set up the tripod and do all of those things while we're trying to like get ready to go on stage for a 90-minute set. So yeah, content manager and content, someone just to push you to develop content is utmost in today's world, you know. Yeah, yeah, I absolutely hate it. You know, I just want to play music. You know, I don't want to have to fool with that, but we have to do it.
Does your booking manager like add more shows? Do they clear everything with you, or you're like, well, we're doing this extra venue, pop stuff, and you know?
Yeah, no, our schedule is usually, you know, well managed ahead of time. Like very rarely do we add anything, you know, in a vacant spot or whatever. It's very rare for that to happen because, you know, most bluegrass musicians have to work as well. Everyone in my band also works day jobs. I actually own a record label. So I run and manage a record label during the day and then tour every weekend. So it's pretty hard to just pop dates up into our calendar like that. Yeah.
And how many bands do you have under the label?
So we have 27 bands under Mountain Fever Records. Hmm.
Wow. Now and you have to manage them too?
Well, I manage all of their releases and, you know, basically everything on the production side of their music. Yes.
So you like staying busy?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I say it all the time. I'll sleep when I'm dead, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Sounds like a good song name.
yeah.
I guess I always wanted to know is how do you know who's going to solo next? Do you have that set? Like when you guys play and do you have it set on whose turn? Do you do like a head nod when it's the next guy's turn? Or?
Yeah, like my records are pretty, you know, pretty well arranged. You know, when we finish that record, we go out and we perform those songs exactly as they were recorded. That was always a goal of mine as an artist when I started years ago, was to have a record and have the band sound exactly like that record when we're standing on a stage. So it's pretty well not rehearsed. It's just we all know whose break is next, you know. I mean, and you play these songs for our album tour, you know, you're playing the same set for 4 or 5 months straight. We know what the next song is and we know exactly whose break lands where. And from time to time, I'm not saying that, you know, we don't get them mixed up, you know, but and then there is like that moment of like if it, you know, say George on fiddle, he jumps in the line and takes that first break rather than the second, you know, we're all, you know, communicating with one another who's, you know, who's going to be on that next break. Yeah. Mhm.
You give them the eye. You stole my break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your new album, because you have quite a few albums out.
Mhm. Yeah. So we just finished my seventh studio album in April, and the first single from that brand new record just released to radio last Friday. Um, and I've only done one independent release, and so everything else has been on Mountain Fever. So I came to Mountain Fever as an artist in 2017, and then this is our sixth record on Mountain Fever that'll come out next April. So.
How long have you managed the label?
I've been managing the label for the last 2 years as the COO, and just August the 1st, I took over ownership of the label.
Wow.
So, yeah, yeah. So,
Now, you said a single came out Friday. I pre-saved another
yeah.
song. Is that the song that's on the radio from this?
Yeah, so the pre-save is what dropped on Friday, Love Through Time, and then it won't release until next Friday. So it'll release everywhere digitally next Friday.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. I heard a little sneak peek of it, but so.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of music and I really like it. I mean, if you tour so much, I'm sure you have great stories from touring.
Well, yeah, we have a ton of stories, but most of them I probably wouldn't be willing to tell.
Well, that's what everybody says. I, I
You
I had
know,
one guy, and he told me a story, but he told me I had to delete it off the thing before I. It's
you
like you guys
know,
aren't any fun.
well, like it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's kind
Yeah,
of like that, It's just
I'm not
the
showing this at church.
the life of being on the road is just it's so weird and it's strange and it's hard and everybody gets tired and you get in those moods of you know I'm just sick of these people. I want to get out of this car, but we love one another and we fight and we make up and so I mean there's no way to pinpoint one single instances of stories. I mean we've had all kinds of weird stuff. We've pulled up to festivals and the stage isn't even out. We pulled up and the promoter walks up to us double fisting beers, and totally smashed. And, we're just like, this is wild. What do we do? We've had people rip their shirts off at a bluegrass festival in the front row and like dance. So, I mean, it's just, it's typical. It's the musician life. And I think we probably all have the same experiences, just in a different genre of music, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
not something you might suspect at a bluegrass festival, but
Yeah, I mean, some of them get pretty wild,
yeah.
I mean, especially I find that the states that are, kind of outlying, that don't have a lot of bluegrass, those states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, those really up north states, like they really dig it and they make it a party. Versus down here in the deep south, everything is a little more um polished and people kind of want to be more like professional and very much more conservative. So I mean I love both, but it's kind of a shock to the system when we get out way out of our area and these people are sitting in the pouring rain watching us play music and we're like that would never happen at home.
I have some friends who'd go to Bean Blossom,
Yeah.
and they said it'd get pretty crazy sometimes.
Yeah, it can, but I still consider Bean Blossom to be one of those festivals that's very like prestigious and like, that was one of the big, main, traditional bluegrass festivals. Uh, there's some of them that get wild. That's all I'll say.
What's the difference between playing that and then playing like a show in Nashville or something?
Well, the festival scene is very much more laid back. It's very much like going to a campground, and most of them are in campgrounds. People are just really chill and they're sitting around a campfire and they're picking. If they're not listening to the main stage act, they're camper and they're picking. You know, it's a much more relaxed environment than say playing in a club in Nashville. I mean, that can get wild in itself, but it's a totally different environment. The festival circuit is much more family oriented and much more relaxed for the most part. I will say playing the Opry is definitely a experience of very professional, it's like the highest level that you can reach as a bluegrass musician to step on the Opry stage. It's very professional, it's very, prestigious. You walk there and you can feel, you better act right and you better do the very best job you can do on that Opry stage. And yeah. What a moment that was. So,
Right, yeah.
mhm.
Do you get a lot of prep time for that?
Well, we were lucky in when we made our Opry debut last year, we had about 3 months. We knew 3 months ahead of time, but I have other bands that I work with on the label that got their debut and they had like 2 weeks to prep for that. And you would think that 3 songs, it wouldn't be that hard to prep for because you're only playing 3 songs, but I think it's the amount of nerves that you have to work through to get through those 3 songs. I was glad to have those 3 months to like wrap my brain around it, and we really don't rehearse as a band because we're always on the road playing together. We rehearse for the Opry, like we we made sure that I knew ahead of time what I was gonna say, even though I didn't stick to it. I at least had a basic breakdown of what I was going to say in between the songs, and the emotions took over, and I just, flubbed it all up. But I tried. Yeah.
But you got to select the songs that you played.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever play any covers?
We do. I mean, it's pretty well known for us to find a cover that's very obscure and really kind of work it over and make it our own thing. I do a cover of in fact, I did that on the Opry. We do a cover of Merle Haggard's song, "My Favorite Memory." Um, and so, I mean, that's pretty common in the bluegrass world too. We always add in a few standards, as we call them, of old bluegrass tunes, especially, the Osborne brothers, the Stanley brothers, Osborne brothers, all of those original kind of pioneers of our music. We always kind of pay tribute to them in our sets, and there'll be a couple covers in each set that we do. Yeah.
I really like that a lot because I know some songs that I'll hear and I like it so much better from this artist compared to another artist. It's the
Yeah.
same song.
Yeah.
It's a classic song, but like you
Right.
hear it and you're like, oh, that's so good, and somebody else will
Yeah.
cover it and you'll be like, oh, I'll listen to this other one. I like it better.
Yeah. I've always been real careful about what covers that I record. I really lean on the more obscure. And it's just because I feel like those songs really need to have a moment, like if I've really enjoyed this song through the years. For example, we did last year on the last year's record, we released a cover of a Harley Allen song called Last Road Going Home. And that song was done, male vocalist. It was done by a male-led band. And it was a great song, and I loved it for years and years. I loved Lou Reed cut that song, and he did a great job with it. And I came back across it, and I said, I don't, not that many people really, I hate to say it that way, but not that many people really appreciated that song, I feel like, as they should have. So I was like, well, I love this song and I'm going to cover it. And we took it, we completely reworked it. Obviously, it's a female vocal. And it went number one. Like, that's the first number one hit that we've had as a band. So it was, pretty cool. Of all the songs that we've done and we've written and we've recorded and released that are our own, it took a cover to get us to number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was still you. It's still you
Yeah.
singing it, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people would never even know that song if you wouldn't have sang it, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope. Yeah. Yeah.
So then everyone else works day jobs, and obviously, I guess you have a day job too since you work
Yeah.
yeah, and then you tour every weekend pretty much. Like how many weekends out of the year you say?
I mean, this year, thankfully, with the changeover of the ownership of the label, we have had a lighter schedule this year, and I think it was just a blessing in disguise. But generally, we're out at least every other weekend. Like October, we're out every weekend. August, we're out every weekend. So it just depends, But again, I'm really kind of thankful that we've had a lighter schedule this year because it's been a year of change and just a lot on my plate, for me. But next year I know we'll be busting out the walls, because we're releasing a record. And historically, our schedule is usually pretty tough when we have an album because we really work hard to get those pre-sales so that we can hit that Billboard chart. It's been a feather in my cap. The last 5 albums that we've released, we've hit the Billboard chart each time. And those placement on the Billboard chart for a bluegrass artist is a big deal because we are so small. We don't have the fan base that, say, Billie Eilish does to get, 4.5 million streams on one song the first day. So we take that and we work that album for 6 months before the album drops. And so we're busting our butt to get those festivals under our belt and get those album sales going. So
How far out do you go? What's the furthest you travel?
we've been all over the North American continent. I mean, we've played a festival as far as the Yukon in Canada. Like I think we were 16 miles from Alaska. So we've played everywhere. Now, we haven't been to Europe yet, but we're very hopeful that that's going to come along next year. So,
That's something you'd be excited for then, huh?
oh yeah, for sure.
I know a lot of people can see on their streaming services where people are listening from,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of, I think country music is real big in like Australia
Yes.
and stuff like that. So would you go there?
I've actually toured Australia.
You already, well,
I've done that. I did that in 2019, which was
did that.
killer. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, it was killer. We've just never been to, like, I really would love to get into the European countries and Ireland and and all those countries, because they really, not that the Australian continent did not appreciate what we did. Like, Australia was amazing and they are huge bluegrass fans, but I feel like the music somewhat is sistered there, especially in Ireland, those countries there. So I'm really looking forward to making that tour happen. And you don't really think about other countries really listening to our music, but we have every September we have our big. It's kind of like CMA Fest for country, but we have our IBMA, which is International Bluegrass Music Association. We have our week long huge festival, and it's amazing to me the amount of artists that come in internationally and how they are solidly, competitive with the American bluegrass bands. You don't really think about Japanese people mashing bluegrass, in B chord, but they do it. It's so cool to me, and I love the inclusivity of it. To see all these people from all over the world really loving our music, because I mean, bluegrass it is a, Appalachian music, and it's 100% an American, based music genre, and to have it, played all over the world, it's pretty awesome.
Where else do you see people come in from?
I mean, we see people from Sweden, Poland, England. I mean, China, Japan, Australia. I mean, everywhere. Canada. There's a huge amount of bluegrass festivals and bluegrass, population, as it were, in Canada. You know, uh, but yeah, they come from all over the world. I mean, we can pull it up and I can see, where our music's being listened to, and it always, especially when I first started, the thought that someone in Japan was listening to one of our records, how cool was that? So, yeah.
Where do you have, is this festival in the same place every year? Do you move around or?
So this is the first year we've been in the festival's been in Raleigh, North Carolina for the last 10 years, and this is the first year it's moved, and now it's going to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it starts on the 15th or 16th of September, I think, that whatever that Monday is of that week, and it's a big time. There's usually that Friday, Saturday. There's usually 250,000 people there for the Street Fest. It's a huge deal. I feel bad for anybody that comes into Chattanooga during that week thinking they're going to have peace and quiet, because there's 60,000 bands.
Now, are you part of the board of the Bluegrass Association?
No, I'm not on the board. I'm on several committees, and as a label executive, I'm, a sponsor for different things each year, and just it's like our only outlet for, a main organization to promote and really support bluegrass. So it's, pretty important to be involved in it. So yeah, we always play. Years past, in that week long, 5 days that we're there, we'll play 10 to as upwards of 19 shows in that 5 days. And we're playing like 30-minute sets all over, the convention and all over downtown. It gives us an opportunity to be seen by promoters that haven't seen us before, to sign us up for gigs for the next touring season. Um, so yeah, there's only been one IBMA that I've missed, and that was the COVID year. Outside of that, I'm always there. Yeah.
So I guess I never asked, how did all this become? How did you get into bluegrass and become a musician?
Yeah, well, my I grew up with my dad playing banjo, and I think that's a commonality with every bluegrass musician. It's very rare for someone to get into this music and not have a family member or a friend or someone close that they kind of grew up around, around the music. But my dad's a banjo player and spent my life going to festivals with him. Um, but I was older when I started playing. I was in band, in high school. I was in marching band and all that. So I was always into music, but not really bluegrass until I got out of school. And then I was like 25, which doesn't seem like it's that old, but for a bluegrass musician, you're like an old geezer at 25 to start playing something. Like my banjo player started playing when she was like 7, you know. Most of the musicians in my band are well, they were young, when they picked up their instruments for the first time. Um, but when I was 25, my dad started a band. He bought me a mandolin and he was like, "We're going to start a band." And it just really started from there. And I toured with him for about 10 years in that band. And then I just decided one day, I want to just do my own thing. Like dad's still playing every weekend. He's out there doing his thing, and he's just super traditional. And I just wanted to kind of like make my own sound. I wanted to get into producing records and things like that. And dad just wasn't, he really didn't think that that was what he wanted to do. And he was like, "Well, if you get your own band, I know you're going to take it and you're going to run the ball." And that's what I did. Dad still, he's super proud, but I don't think really deep down he expected it to go as far as it's went. But yeah, I had a lot of naysayers when I quit my full-time job to play music full-time. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, it worked out for you, and
yeah,
and
I guess
I
so.
I know obviously you put in the work.
Yeah.
It's not like things came easy though. And then how did you find your band?
So my banjo player, she is from the same section of Florida that I grew up in. We're right there on the Gulf Coast, and so she was about 2 hours from me. I was in Pensacola area, and she was in the Panama City area. And so her parents, her grandparents, they knew my dad very, very well. So Caroline actually played with my dad and knew my dad really before her and I kind of joined forces. She's a little bit younger than me, so she was in that teenage crowd when I was in my 20s. She was, young teenager and was, playing with her crowd. So we met up at a festival in Perry, Florida, and just kind of hit it off. She was just getting into college years when we kind of started this thing. And or she was just started finishing school, going into nursing school actually. I just, I was like, I told her what I wanted to do, which again, she knew, me from my band at that point with my dad, and told her what I wanted to do. And she was like, "Yeah, I would love to start a band." So we started the band, and then we just, we were on the hunt, to add all those other parts in. And George Mason, our fiddle player, and Josh Fall both lived on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. So they were not that far from me either. And I just reached out to George and I was like, "Hey, Caroline and I've got this band put together. I'd love for you to come play fiddle for us." And he was in a band and he said, "Well, I've got this commitment. I can't just leave them high and dry." And then it wasn't very long after that, that band kind of went off the road. And he called me. He's like, "Hey, do you still want me?" I was like, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, if you take me, you kind of got to take Josh on bass too." And I was like, "Well, I want both of you." And so then it was the awesome foursome that we had going there. And Yeah, and they just, we're a lot more like family, I guess, because we are, so close, being from the Gulf Coast and all of our families. I mean, again, George knew my dad before I knew George, all of that. So it just kind of came together in this like miracle scenario that these people all wanted to play music for me and with me, and the band is really close. And I mean, we've just done all these things together. I'm just lucky, I guess. Yeah.
Do you hang out outside of music?
We do. Yeah, we do. We have holidays together, and we go to each other's family events and things like that. It's again, it's that bluegrass camaraderie where it's not just a job. I mean, I'm sure some bands are just the job. There's sidemen that's in bands that's just their job. Um, but we don't look at it like that. And when one of us that, like if my husband's not feeling good, I'm texting them and saying, "Hey, he's not feeling good." We're really all involved in one another's lives more than just, work coworkers kind of thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I know that is probably a lot different from a lot of other bands or music
Yeah.
genres and stuff like that. Yeah, I know some. I feel like country music, especially if it's just a country singer, they'll just
Yeah.
hire people to
Yeah.
go play with them, and
Yeah.
they do one tour and they're done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and as a solo artist, I am on the label as a solo artist. So that was one of the things that I really had to fight against, because it's pretty common for solo artists to be just a solo artist, just a singer, and then they hire a touring band to tour their records or whatnot. And I just didn't want, I wanted that feel of the Amanda Cook band. That's the way I wanted it to be. So I worked real hard to make that a thing. Because it was easier for the promoters to accept as well. There's a lot of preconceived notions about solo female artists in the bluegrass genre because it is a male dominated field. There's no doubt. Bluegrass is a male dominated genre, and festival promoters really care how many butts are filling the seats. All right. I mean, that they care about who's coming and buying tickets to their festival. So I wanted to work really hard to make it that I'm not just going to be up there like Jenny from Gump, just playing guitar. I wanted it to be like a show, and I wanted to bring a full, really powerhouse band every single show that we did, and that's what we've achieved. I have a lot of promoters, especially new places we go, where they'll put us in that like dinner crowd, like they'll put us right after the dinner break so that, like if not everybody has wandered back from their camper or from their dinner break, they'll wander back and they won't be appalled if they're bored to death. And then after we play our sets or whatever, they'll come up to me and say, "We'll never do that to you again. Y'all are so awesome." So, it's working. It's working. Yeah.
do you or any other band members play on in the studio for other bands?
Oh yeah, like all of my guys, Caroline, our banjo player, she's probably the only one that doesn't get in the studio as much because she is a full-time registered nurse. So her life is pretty chaotic, and she has a child, and she has a husband, she has all those things. So she doesn't get in the studio very often, but she does from time to time get called in to do session work. George, my fiddle player, that's all he does. And George actually writes scores for television and for commercials and symphonies. Like he is a classically trained violinist as well. So he is like kind of a big deal in the world of like everything outside of bluegrass. He can write and read and chart and all of those things. So he's highly called upon. Same thing with our mandolin player Troy Boone. He is he's got a master's degree in sound engineering, so he is a sound engineer really above everything else. And so he does a lot of session work. He records projects for all different bluegrass bands, and rock bands and you know, so yeah, we're all in the music industry. The only one that really has a real job is Caroline. The rest of us just dabble in the music industry in a different way, you know. So we always like to we give her the props that she's saving lives. So, we're just making music, right? Yeah.
Does the studio record anything other than bluegrass?
The studio does operate as a regular, rentable studio. And I've recorded yoga sessions, I've recorded gong, I've recorded gospel music. I mean, just all different genres of music has come through that where they've just rented the studio time. But it is primarily acoustic. It's primarily a bluegrass environment. Um, I personally have never recorded drums in my life. I know that they have been recorded there. I just was not the one doing it. I wouldn't even know where to start.
How do you find these artists to sign to the label?
Well, I do a lot of, obviously I spend time on TikTok, believe it or not. I've found bands on TikTok. I've found bands on Facebook and Instagram. That is the new world of research and development, as it were. I do find bands at IBMA. I've signed several bands from that week at IBMA. I'll actually invite them to come and showcase for us in our Mountain Fever showcase room or whatever, and give them a shot, to really show me what they got and be under pressure. But I've I have found bands that I've got my eye on for next year from TikTok.
Now, is there something like writers rounds or stuff like that? Like, is there showcases where like you can go and people will showcase their music?
Yeah, I mean the whole premise of the evening at IBMA is definitely showcases, and they're in various locations all out throughout the convention center and the hotel. The best showcases to go and see are the ones in hotel rooms where there is no audio, there are no mics, it's just a band under pressure in a 25-minute set just playing their very best cuts, and you really get the real feel of what they have potential to do on a stage. It's stressful. I mean, that's how I started. Showcases at IBMA and Spigma and different things that we go to, and literally you've got people 2 feet from your guitar face. You've got people right there. There'll be 75 to 100 people packed into a hotel room watching this band. It's awesome.
Yeah,
But terrifying at the same time.
it sounds like an experience for
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of want to go now.
You should. I'm telling you, you
Yeah.
should. Yeah.
If I can convince my wife, I don't know. She's not the
Yeah.
biggest bluegrass fan, but maybe one of my
Yeah,
kids will go.
yeah, my husband was not at all when I first started, when I was in the band with my dad, he was not a fan. He was not a fan of bluegrass at all. He wasn't really raised up with it, so he didn't really get it. And then as the years have progressed, now he's totally, I tell him all the time, I've pulled him to the dark side, because he's ate up with it. And I think there's a lot of, preconceived notions of what the music is, but there's so many young bands coming out. Like, I don't know if you've heard this band lately on TikTok, the Creakers.
Oh yeah,
Woke up this morning, dazed and confused. Like, that's a bluegrass band, and people don't think that that's like when they think of bluegrass, they're thinking of like Bill Monroe and, the founders of the music that weren't necessarily like what the general population would listen to. But I think all these young people, these young hot pickers that are coming on the scene, they're changing that. Um, so yeah, let your wife listen to the Creakers or Billy Strings and see what she says.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's close. She's country music. She likes country music a lot. So I'm
Yeah.
sure there's something that's probably pretty close
Yeah.
to something that she would like. She kind of
Yeah.
likes Steel Drivers a little. She'll listen to
Yeah.
some of them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I like that Creaker song though. It's pop. It's everywhere. And then so
Oh,
many
it's
people are
every.
doing covers of it all the time
Mhm.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's that, that 30-second clip on TikTok that made that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about anything of mine going crazy. It's not. It's just interviews, but
Yeah, you
considering
just
I just like to get it out there, and
yeah.
really, it's more of a learning experience for me. I feel like.
Yeah. You just never know, like I scrolled across it and I was like, well, this is cool, like let's do it. You never know who would come across it and want to interview with you, and it could go viral. It's the world is a crazy place now. The stuff that, I mean, I never in my life thought that I would ever step on that Opry stage. You know what I mean? Like never ever thought that would happen. So,
And then you'll be back in Nashville this weekend. Where are you playing at this weekend?
we're going to be at the Station Inn on Friday night. Again, another iconic stage. Really cool venue. It's the quintessential bluegrass venue. And if you've never been, I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
So,
I'd like to
yeah,
go. I didn't get a chance last time I went, but
yeah.
I'd definitely like to go. Have you played there you play there often?
We usually play a couple times a year. We usually try to get into the station a couple times a year, and you never know who's going to walk in that door. You just don't know. So, because everybody goes there. I mean, all the country stars go, and it's just a really cool hangout, and the people are great, and great pizza and popcorn.
Was it kid
Yeah.
friendly?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a bar. It's definitely a listening room. So it's, I mean, they have beer, but it's definitely not a rough and rowdy bar. It is very much a music venue. Yep.
Keep that in mind then.
Yeah.
What would be your this is what I wanted in music? Like when you got to it, you're like, out of when I started and was
hmm
dreaming, this is what I wanted.
Well, I think what we experienced last weekend, I think that was one of those moments. And why I say that is we we played in northern Wisconsin, and the crowd I mean, it was a massive crowd, huge festival. And when we got on stage, that many people really knew who we were, but the way that show went down this past weekend, I don't have any video of it. And that's so disappointing because it was one of those moments where we all locked in and it was just awesome. Like it was just one of the best shows we've ever had. Not maybe musically, but it was just that moment where it was like the aha of this is exactly what I wanted from the very beginning. This right here. The crowd is clapping, people are dancing. I'm just leaning back and bellowing, and the band is feeling it. We're all vibing. My bass player is back there. He is just the coolest guy, meaning he's just so chill and not like hyper. He's just always level. And even he was head banging. It was just one of those moments where like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for all along. It was just so good. And I mean, I came off that stage and was just I was just soaked with sweat, you know, because we had just had such a great show. I think that's one of the best moments that we've had outside, of course. I keep going back to the Opry, like that was just so incredible.
Well, I hope somebody got some footage from somewhere and they'll put it out there.
Been searching every morning, Amanda Cook Band at Larry Fest, and thus far I've not found anything. But that was the one time we did not do, we didn't set up the tripod, and I could kick myself for it.
I always wondered this. and a lot of bluegrass songs, there's so many that are like very close to gospel songs. So like
Hmm.
I'll listen to a band and they'll have a gospel song, and then the very
Hmm.
next song is about them in jail because they just
Hmm.
murdered their wife or something.
Right. Hmm. I mean,
And I
you got, yeah,
I
you
don't
got
know
to have
it.
a balance. You got to have a
Yeah.
balance. You know, I mean, we've played some of the rowdiest festivals and played a gospel song, and the whole entire crowd just goes dead silent with respect of that. It's just, again, that's part of our culture. Like gospel music, gospel songs are always a part of bluegrass, and very rarely are you going to see a bluegrass album without a gospel song on it. So you just got to have a balance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
you need church and
No.
Jesus after all that, but yeah,
Right.
yeah. I, I always found that very intriguing in a lot of music, bluegrass
Yeah.
music. It's such a
Yeah.
range of, one
Yeah.
spectrum and from one end to the other. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than a good killing bluegrass song. I
and
mean, just saying.
those are some of my favorite actually.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it, which is weird. I like a lot of slower bluegrass songs
Hmm.
and a lot of guitar.
Yeah.
So, which I feel like a lot of the slower ones do have more guitar. Do you have like a nickname? Do they call it like when you're up on stage? Do you have like do you turn into somebody and they're like, uh-oh, here she is?
Not really. I
No.
mean, I not really. I mean, they all kind of call me well, everybody in my little group like calls me Mander. Like that's kind of like the common nickname if there was one, it'd be Mander. But most often, I'll get the sarcastic of "Okay, mom." I'll get that "Okay, mom," because I do kind of treat them like they're my little children. You know, they're just they like my kids. Like that's the way that I feel about them, and that's the way I kind of treat them. Okay, we need to be here on time. That kind of thing. But you know, that's about it. I mean, we don't really have nicknames for one another, and even if I said it, I wouldn't say it on here.
Right. It's kind of like my
Yeah,
wife's nickname for me, right?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
How do you get to all your venues? Do you take a bus? Do you all drive separately? Fly?
We
Everything?
drive. We drive. We usually split up into two vehicles because part of the band is on the East Coast. So half the band is in Virginia and Tennessee. The other half of the band is in Arkansas and Mississippi. So the Arkansas, Mississippi folks usually come this way and meet and then drive. And we do fly, like if we're going out west, we're gonna fly. Or obviously when we went to the Yukon, we flew. And Australia, what I mean, obviously. But for the most part, if we're doing the festival season, we're driving. We use in-ears, and so we have an in-ear rig that we carry with us, and it's pretty heavy. The board, we have a regular 32 channel Behringer board, and it's really heavy. It's about 90 pounds for that sucker. So, we have to drive. Somebody has to drive that, if nothing else. So we usually just like, we left Friday morning about 5. Oh, I left here at 4 a.m. on Friday morning. I picked up half the band in Irwin, Tennessee, and it was a total drive of 16 and a half hours on Friday. Got to Wisconsin and collapsed, and then played the show Saturday, and then got up Sunday morning and drove all the way back. So,
Do
yeah.
you have to find your own rooms and stuff?
Generally, no. The festival with our rider, it's usually written in that we have rooms included the day before and the day of our show. Now, if we're doing a run where we've got multiple shows in the weekend, we usually do have to book those rooms in between and whatnot. But again, that's what we have management, and we're so thankful for her because she helps me and gets that stuff squared away. Um, we have done several overnight drives, that's pretty tough, leaving a gig at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and then driving, 6, 7, 8 hours to get to the next city or whatever. I mean, I would love to have a bus, but I don't really, realistically, do I ever really see that happening of us having a bus. So it's just so expensive. Yeah.
You'd still have to go pick them up anyway.
Yeah, or that you have to drive to me, to
Right.
catch the bus. Yeah.
So when do you plan this new album to be coming out?
So, I think it's the end of April. I don't really have a dedicated date for it yet, but I suspect that it will be the end of April when we drop that record.
And then you'll be touring on that. Like, so do you do much during the winter?
Uh, I mean, occasionally, not usually. Like I usually take off December and January for sure. There's not that many festivals going on in the winter months, and the indoor festivals, they're pretty few and far between. As far as like out west, there's a few that's in January and February, but most of the time, that is our time to like actually have time off and do our family stuff, enjoy just a little bit of downtime. And then that's when I usually spend my time pulling material, writing material. I use that time to really have the creative rather than the planning and the touring and all of that. Sit down and just kind of be an artist, rather than a touring band. I mean, I love touring and I love the summer. I love being on, playing the music and all, but I really look forward to every year when that December 1st rolls around, and I've got that time off at home.
When you start back up, do you usually start in the south and work your way north as it warms up?
I mean, it just depends. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've done festivals in April, in Michigan where it was freezing cold. We've been to Vermont in June when it was freezing cold. So it just depends on how they come in. We take them. You know what I mean? When they come in, we take them. Yeah. So,
Well, this has been great. I appreciate everything.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you. I know that was weird to reach out and just like randomly reach out like that, but I appreciate you just
Yeah,
taking
no.
me and yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to find a lot of people with a lot of different sounds and just people that I find unique.
Yeah.
And I actually just had to put out another post and try to get some more,
Hmm.
prospects in. And I get a lot of messages and stuff. And you wouldn't believe how many of them are AI, people who
Well,
make
yeah.
AI music. I
Yeah.
probably half a dozen that I've got,
No.
and you can tell. So I try to
Yeah.
go and listen to their music and stuff a little or check them out, and it's like
Yeah.
I just can't bring myself to do that. So
I've got, a laundry list of artists that are in the bluegrass world. So if you get, I mean, obviously you don't want to pile up a whole bunch of bluegrass artists at one time, but if you want any more, I'm happy to like,
mhm.
make that connection happen for you. So
Oh yeah,
just let
great,
just let
good.
me know. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was hoping for too. As I made connections, hopefully they could lead me to more
Yeah.
connections also. So
Yeah.
great. All right. Well, I appreciate it so
All
much,
right.
and thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks and take
All right.
care.